The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Investment advice offered through Fragasso Financial Advisors, a registered investment advisor.
Welcome to The Advisor, presented by Fragasso Financial Advisors. This is Marcia Posset, Marketing Manager at Fragasso, and this radio show's producer. I'm here today with our hosts, Bob Fragasso and Mike Furtick.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
And today's topic is Financing Post-Secondary Education version 2.0. We had version 1 of this topic broadcasted at the end of August, and there was so much information to discuss that we invited Brianne King back to the studio today to continue our conversation. And Brianne King is the Manager of Financial Planning at Fragasso. And Brianne, can you please tell us more about your background, experience, and your work at Fragasso?
Sure. Thanks, Marcia. Like she said, I'm the Manager of Financial Planning. I oversee our financial planning process and work directly with the individuals who build the personal financial plans that we provide for our clients and prospects. I'm a certified financial planning practitioner and also an accredited investment fiduciary, and I've been with Fragasso for 16 years.
And we're here to bring the purposes of our show. First, to bring you just that kind of expert opinion that Brianne brings to the show today and translate that into helpful information as a guide to you in your financial journey.
Fragasso Financial Advisors is primarily a fee-based investment management firm. We work on a platform of holistic financial planning that all starts with your goals, objectives, and the things that you're trying to accomplish. And we provide advice for individuals, retirement plans, and foundations and endowments. We have locations in downtown Pittsburgh, in Bethel Park in the South Hills, and at Cool Springs in the South Hills, and also out in the North Hills in Wexford. And we are a team of, Brianne just mentioned a couple of these, we are a team of certified financial planner practitioners. Those are the folks that you see with the CFP marks after their name. Also, chartered financial analysts. CFAs, and those folks are in our portfolio management department. We are also accredited investment fiduciaries, which seems like it ought to go without saying, but that essentially means that we must act in the best interest of our client. We are also a group of portfolio managers. We have a total of about 50 professionals employed at Fragasso, ranging from the financial advisors to portfolio management, administrative personnel, marketing and retirement plan services as well, and that totals about 50 of us altogether.
And as I mentioned, today's topic is financing post-secondary education. So, Bob, why should our listeners care about this topic?
Marcia, we all want our children and grandchildren to become financially secure, and the ability to accomplish that is directly attributable to their educational background and, consequently, the occupation that they hold as a result of that education. The competitive pressure of the world economy and the need for specialized skills and training require that we invest in higher education for our children and grandchildren, be it college, technical school, or other specialized training. While post-secondary education, meaning after high school, was always expensive relative to income, it has become even more so today because wages have not kept up with the rising cost of higher education. So if we look at what percentage education expense took of total family earnings during the period of education, it was a smaller percentage in years past. During my time, for example, even though we thought it was expensive, it was a smaller percentage. Now it's a larger percentage because education costs have risen at twice the rate of inflation during that period of time.
And now more kids are going to school, which is leading to the cost going up.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, we talked on a previous show about the fact that and we're using the term college education, but Bob, you just mentioned it's, whether it's a skill, some other sort of schooling, it's that post-high school process that we're really talking about today.
And that takes us into a different subject that we won't delve too deeply in, but I think there's a mandate, given the factors that we've just discussed and we'll continue to discuss, to provide functional education, meaning able to translate into the ability to make a living. Not just teaching functional, we need broad education, but the broad gentleman's education, quote unquote, of 100 years ago is no longer appropriate when it is the sole means of educational delivery. We have to turn everything we've learned in all of our coursework at all levels into how does that allow me to function in the world based on the education I've received, and that's true for everybody. According to the College Board, the average annual cost of tuition and fees they publish on a fiscal year, so it's 2015 to 16 school year average, was $32,405 at private colleges. This is for the whole country. And $23,893 for public. That's per year. I didn't pay that much for 4 years, way back in the middle of the last century. It wasn't quite the middle. The range can be as low as about $10,000 per year and up to $70,000 a year. Thus, all post-secondary education is expensive and typically cannot be paid by the average family from current household income. Because this is one of the largest family expenditures, often more in cost than the family home, it needs careful planning and appropriate saving. Taxes are a large part of the planning consideration. Money saved from unnecessary taxation is available to fund education. We're covering all of this in this show, including how to think about the choice of education and its provider.
Yeah, and we did. We covered this topic in more of a survey course format back in August, but we thought it was so vital to family financial planning and success that we're revisiting this today and taking it to a higher level of specificity in its planning, and we're going to talk about a lot of those things today.
Mike, let's keep you rolling. Review for us the various ways that families can fund education relative to pre-funding versus current pay versus post, meaning after the fact funding. Maybe we can call this question the cost of procrastinating.
Yeah, and you just hit them. You can pre-fund, and we're going to talk about some of the details of that. You can pay as you go, but as we've mentioned a couple of times now, most folks can't afford to simply pay out of current income.
Could you imagine coming up with an extra $70,000 per year?
Yeah, you better hope that you get that raise.
Or the average
bonus.
family, even $10,000.
Yeah,
Right.
it is
After
not.
tax, you have to come up with $10,000 to $70,000.
Yeah, so one of the things that we will harp on is to do it early, do it often, be consistent. The sooner you start, the better off you'll be, etc. But let me start. So let me start with the preferred method of funding for education. The preferred method, in our minds anyhow, would be to pre-fund it. You can, and we would suggest you should start funding for education as soon as possible after having children, because as we're going to talk about today, the sooner you start, the better off you'll be, and then you'll be able to use things like the power of time and compounding and some other things that we'll talk about to your advantage. You can also use the power of tax deferral to your advantage, and we're going to talk about that. But even if you don't have a fancy chart to show you how the power of tax deferral works, and we will have a fancy chart for you later that we'll talk to you about, but just think about this just in general. If you have two investments, one is tax deferred, you don't pay any tax on it, the other is taxable, which one do you think is going to grow faster, right? Doesn't matter even what tax bracket you're in. If you're in the lower tax brackets, if you're in the 15 or 20% bracket, you're going to have 15 or 20% more money. If you're in the 28 or 30 or 35% bracket, you're going to have 28 or 30 or 35% more money just by tax.
Working for you and compounding.
Working for you, compounding, and it's going to grow a whole lot faster. Now, if you haven't pre-funded, your choices boil down to pay as you go or finance the cost and then pay it back with interest. So if you pay as you go, again, you're going to be paying with after-tax money. So it's already going to have been reduced by your tax bracket. So let's call that 25%. You're in the hole by 25%, and you better hope your cash flow, as you mentioned before, Brianne, you better hope that cash flow allows for you to pay and still meet all of your other expenses, not the least of which is saving for your own retirement. Right, so a lot of these things are going to come up, and if you're not preparing for them in advance, all of a sudden you're going to be met with a lot of issues.
And an adjunct to that, Mike, is that maybe someone might say, "Well, I'm not able to pay out of cash flow, but I'm going to use up my personal investment assets, or worse, take money out of my retirement plan and pay a penalty in taxes." You have the opportunity lost, which is greater than an interest carrying charge in most cases.
It is.
So current funding is not a good way. Now let's take it a step further and make it worse.
So
we
here's-
might not have time to fully develop it in this segment, but start.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick one. If we finance, so we didn't pre-fund, we couldn't pay as we went, so we went out and we took out loans to pay for this. So we financed it. Now you're paying these loans back. And remember, we're paying the loans back with after-tax money. So it's already 25% less in our example. And we're then paying interest on top of the loan. So if I go back to the first option that I mentioned and remind people, pre-funding, you put three very important principles to use: time, tax savings, and rate of return. And when we come back, we're going to develop that just a little bit further, and I'll explain that a little more fully.
So we're ready for a short break, and then we'll pick up where we left off to further discuss tips on how to fund post-secondary education. But before we do so, I want to remind our listeners that you can take part in our show, The Advisor. Submit your questions anytime on our website at fragasoadvisors.com/radio. That's FRAGASSOADVISORS.com/radio. And we're also offering a free white paper this week related to today's radio show topic. It's titled School is in Session, A Guide to College Savings Strategies, which is written by Brianne King. So take advantage of this and many other free downloads on the radio page of Fragaso's website.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Investment advice offered through Fragasso Financial Advisors, a registered investment advisor.